Yeah, welcome everybody to a new episode of the MG65FM podcast. Today we are going to end with Microsoft Fabric, not looking at one isolated feature, but at how the different parts of the platform come together to create a modern analytics architecture. How should organizations think about Lakehouse versus data warehouse? Where does PySpark belong? When should we use data flow Gen 2? How do semantic models fit into the architecture? And ultimately, how do we turn all this technology into Power BI solutions that business user can actually use and make a better decision? My guest today is Amit Chandak, Microsoft Microsoft Data Platform MVP and Power BI community super user. Amit has more than 22 years of experience in data analytics and currently leads data engineering and analytics solution at Canerica. His experience spans Microsoft Fabric, Power BI, SQL databases, Tableau, and Corta, data engineering, modeling, and visualization. Today, we are going to build the Microsoft Fabric analytics story from the ground up, from architecture to ingesting through transformation, storage, semantics models, security performance, and final Power BI. Amit, welcome to the MC65 podcast.
Thanks for inviting me for this podcast. It's my pleasure to be part of this one, Peter.
Awesome. Amit, before we get deeply technical, how did your journey into data and analytics begin?
Yeah, so you know, I was I joined Oracle in 2003. I've selected in Oracle as an off campus, and I became the part of their BI team. They were going through one of the transformation at that time. They were building this tool which is known as DBI, Daily Business Intelligence, and that's where I started my journey. After I left Oracle, I started a company along with one of my colleague, and I ran a data analytics startup for 10 years. We created our own tool, very similar to Power BI Direct Query. We used to have the tool completely on the web. At that time, having a complete web authoring was a challenge. So that tool was completely authored on web, designing reports, creating the semantic model, and everything was on the web. So complete web authoring was there. And then I done that for 10 years, and post that I decided to move on. That's where I joined my current company, Canerica, and I also moved to Microsoft Technology around the same time. I became a Power BI community super user around 2020, and then around in 2022 October, when I became a Microsoft MVP for data platform.
Awesome. That's yeah, a fantastic way. 22 years. That's a long time. But yeah, let's direct jump into the fabric part. So let's start with the big question. What problem is Microsoft Fabric actually trying to solve?
See, prior to Microsoft Fabric, it's not that we are doing data engineering something new this with Fabric. We whatever components Fabric has, all those components were previously available at different places. So if you look at Azure ecosystem, you could have 100 plus choices to do what Fabric is doing today. If I look at the larger ecosystem, if I include Azure, AWS, even Google platform, I might have 1,000 plus choices to do my own data engineering work. But the challenge was bigger. Now, choice of technology was one challenge. Then, other than choice of technology, creating multiple copies of data. So, what happens in the if data analytics or BI ecosystem? We say single source of truth. We always talk about it. But our own ecosystem, because we sometimes we need data lake, another time we need data warehouse, and then we need powerful tools like Power BI, which were for input mode. We were ourselves creating copies of data, and all these tools are working on different technologies. Means they have different kind of backends. Their storage were different. They were created at different time frames. So all of them were built differently, storing differently, and they were using different ways to compute powers getting compute. Now
Mm.
Microsoft knows the challenge, and I think that's where they started with Synapse, where they wanted to address this one. Now Fabric came as even higher, where they sorted out the entire stuff, where whether you have the structured data, unstructured data, where you wanted to have warehouse, where you wanted to have Power BI, or even real time analytics. They were able to put everything at one place, and they're starting with few foundations like OneLake, where your entire data assets, whether it's a metadata or data, can reside. Then they solve the problem of compute by saying, okay, all the workloads in Microsoft Fabric can share one single compute. Now you can have multiple compute as per requirement, but that is one of the biggest achievement, because think about your running Spark workload. How would you compare that with Power BI workload or SQL workload? They're
Mm,
altogether different. But everything get converted to compute units and getting charged within the same a number of computes which is available with you, let's say per day or per 30 seconds. Then comes the challenge which is there with the storage. Now, I have storage which is available for the greater work, but what happens when I store the data, let's say for Lakehouse, I might prefer some format. Now, Warehouse doesn't understand that format, and that's why I was copying data from Lakehouse to Warehouse when I was doing previous stuff. Similarly, Power BI was not comfortable with data warehouse formats, so it was creating on copy. Now, whenever we store the structured data, whether it's a Lakehouse, whether it's a warehouse, it all getting stored into delta format, which created that uniform format which Lakehouse understand, which Spark understand, which T-SQL understand, which even the Power Query engine has been modified to understand that. So it means I am not unnecessarily creating copies of data. Definitely, most of us follows the Medallion architecture, and in that we will have bronze, silver, and gold. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to create unnecessary copies of my bronze data and unnecessary copies of my gold data. So
mm,
that these are some of the challenges which existed while we have the ecosystems available for last 15-20 years to do data analytics. But these are some of the challenges which emerges because of the growth of the data which is there with us, and Microsoft Fabric has went ahead and addressed that.
mhm. And how major do an organization's data practice need to be before adapting Fabric?
See, Microsoft Fabric is basically a complete end-to-end solution for your data analytics need. So even if you are starting for data analytics, Microsoft Fabric can be there. So the only maturity is needed at the source level, that you understand your sources and you understand uh, what is needed for data analytics. If you are ready to analyze your data, if your data are in shape, like say, if your data is completely unorganized, you are still working on some of those spreadsheets a lot, some of the uh, let's say ERP or CRM implementations are still ongoing or on middle of it, then it might not be the right time. But if you are a data mature company in terms of capturing the data and wanted to do analytics, or already there with some analytics and wanted to transform it to the modern system, I think in both cases you are ready for data analytics on Microsoft Fabric. It provides you everything. This means if you if you say I just wanted to do create very simple reports using Power BI, that's also possible. And you want to follow the complete architecture, bringing data to the lake houses, transforming it and create warehouse, and then wanted to do it, that is also possible in Microsoft Fabric.
Mm. What did you think? How important is domain-oriented architecture in Fabric, or should organizations create one large centralized Fabric environment or distribute responsibility across business domains?
I think we are in an era where we talk about business owning the stuff, where we talk about data mesh architecture, where we talk about domains. So in the modern architecture, while your IT could be custodian of your data, but you need to create multiple domains in which the data is going to reside finally. So you can have a master data separately analyzed for the organization level, because master data management is key for all the analysis. Post that, I think it is based on, let's say, sales, finance, and purchase can have their own workspaces, can they have their own domain, and the data can reside. If you are a small to medium sized organization, having a centralized data warehouse works, means it can have anything. But if you are a medium to large enterprise, or a very large enterprise, it is always good to have data mesh architecture, where you have the domains, and the ownership lies with business more than IT. So it is the combined governance, while the data sanctity and the data availability ensured by IT, but the analysis part of it, distribution part of it, and the management part of this is governed by the business.
Mm. And I think the core term when we talk about Microsoft Fabric is it's OneLake. What is a OneLake in practical terms?
See, in practical terms, like, today what happens, let's talk about our own stuff. When we are, trying to go online, one of the things what we do is we either we choose, let's say, OneDrive for ourselves. We are trying to put our Word file, Excel file, everything on the OneDrive and say, okay, my data is, all stored at one place in OneDrive. Now, now in Microsoft Fabric world, OneLake is the OneDrive. Whether it is my Lakehouse data, warehouse data, my metadata, my Power BI semantic model, everything is getting stored at one place. And the good thing about this is one single virtualized storage for your tenant. Now, think about, you kind of have a tenant which is, single tenant which is across geographies and everything. You need to take care about that. And that is where, Fabric does it smartly, that at the workspace level, you can have those regional aspect taken care of. So virtualized as one, but yet still internally you can have the security aspect or the regional aspect covered.
Mm. And what problem does the OneLake solve compared to organization creating, I don't know, multiple independent data lakes?
See, when we say data lake, understand, inside Microsoft Fabric, again, we can have multiple lake houses. But
Hmm.
think about it this, let's say if I wanted to store it at different places, typical previous architecture which you talked about, let's say multiple lake houses. See, when we store at different places, we need different security keys. We need different management. We have different costs around it. Now here, what is happening, you are being charged for what you are storing. Maybe it is stored practically for purpose in different workspaces and different lake houses. These are just containers, folders. This is like, if I go my computer, I'll not store everything in one drive or one folder. I'll have this set of folders. So Microsoft Fabric make it so easy inside your OneLake, that it is one virtualized disk for you, where you have different folders. Now the folder could be Lakehouse, or something below that you have the data. In that
Hmm.
aspect, you are storing it. So the entire storage at one place, you are getting charged at one place. Now the security is entire SSO security or your item level security which comes in and play. So you can secure it easily. It is all getting secure using one set of, uh, way. It is not different experience that, okay, if I have a data stored in, let's say, ADLS storage or AWS storage, I need to have different processes for that. And how do I secure and still give access to everyone? That's not a challenge here. It is the same common interface to, put the data in and secure it for everyone using either the workspace level security or item level security, or inside even item means, let's say, but a warehouse or lakehouse or item or entities. Inside that, further I can go and secure individual table, columns, or even the row level data.
Mm-hmm. And how should organization think about ownership when multiple teams consume the same data through OneLake?
See, so for the ownership, that is why we have these concepts of workspaces where the actual security process start. So what we typically do is we divide the content into different workspaces, and from those workspaces, for individual items, we give access to the other people who wanted to access. Like, I'll have a master data workspace where entire my master data resides. Now the same master data will be consumed by sales team. It is also being consumed by finance team. So I'll give the access, the read access, to all the people who are consuming that data to read it. And
Mm.
then further they can, go ahead and give the access to the end users and consumers.
Also, okay. And but when we have this architecture, how important are shortcuts in this architecture, and when should you use a shortcut instead of a physical copying data?
Okay. So shortcut could be internal shortcut or external shortcut. Now, first we talk about external shortcuts, because internal shortcuts serve multiple purposes. So external shortcut is something basically the data is outside the Microsoft Fabric ecosystem, and you can still create a shortcut to it. Basically, you have something on AWS or somewhere in Google, and then you wanted to bring that in.
Okay.
When you create shortcut, the data is typically not uh, getting copied here. It is just treated as the data at that place, and then we can, when as and when we need it, it get queried. Definitely, there is a cache mechanism to bring it. Now, the shortcut could be in Azure, which typically treated as native storage, because everything else is in Azure unless you are in different region. Now, within Microsoft Fabric system ecosystem, also we create shortcuts. We create shortcuts to another lake houses or warehouses and bring the things together. So what happens when you have this multiple domain architecture, and we firmly believe in not copying the data? So what we end up doing is creating shortcuts. So finance will have a shortcut to master data, to read the master data. Also shortcuts provide two more things. You can have your security bifurcated because of the shortcuts. And one more thing which shortcut does is basically shortcut uses the capacity of the current workspace. So it is practically possible that I have a workspace 1 which is working on capacity 1 and workspace 2 which is working on capacity 2, and I created these shortcuts in capacity 2 workspace. Then it
Mhm.
can use capacity 2 for that workspace, and that is needed for the Power BI use cases. Because what would happen, the report consumption is something which is done by executives,
Mhm.
and that is the place where if your data engineering workloads are working, you don't want them to consume your entire capacity, and these executives are seeing the slowness into the report. So you would definitely want your Power BI reports to run without being worrying about what is happening to my data engineering, which is continuously running in some organization. But it is reading the same data because it's the same OneLake. Power BI is not copying the data now. So when it is not copying the data, though I have separated out the workspace 2 is Power BI, workspace 1 is uh, data, which is Lakehouse. And the moment it queries, it goes to the workspace 1 where my Lakehouse reside, it start using that capacity. But the shortcuts ensures that it uses the workspace 2. So I create a Lakehouse with shortcuts in workspace 2, and now it is accessing by Power BI, which ensures that now I'm using the capacity of workspace 2, not the workspace 1. So many objective, no copy of data, isolation of your workspace capacities, and even the security aspect. When you try to secure and you don't want to secure some of those things, that can also be handled with shortcuts. So there are many uses, and it is real whenever possible we should use shortcuts. Now, only thing one thing which should we remember when we go cross systems means across cloud, because in that case, every time you send the query, other than caching, it may end up querying the data. And sometime the other system when it gives out the data, it may have a cost. So we need to also see what is the cost we are going to incur when we take out the data, and that will decide whether we need to have shortcut or mirroring or copying of data.
Mhm. Awesome. Um, there's what one thing in Fabric. It's I can choose the lake house, and I also can choose the data warehouse. When I choose what and why is it's the data warehouse still existing there?
Okay, so let's start with the term in the industry which is known as a warehouse. Basically, if you call about, we talking about data warehouse for almost maybe around 30 years. So there is one industry term which is known as data warehouse, which is basically we call single source of truth. Where typically what all of us say is that it's where our gold data reside, the data which is ready for consumption for BI. But when we come to the ecosystem like Microsoft Fabric, we have a lake house, we have a warehouse. Now, are we talking warehouse as a single source of truth? No, we are talking here warehouse as one of the storage place and how the data is going to store. So let's say Lakehouse can store both structured and unstructured data. Warehouse can only store structured data. So one call is deciding, okay, if I have unstructured data files, I need Lakehouse to be there. Now the second thing is basically the data when it's stored as structured data, both Lakehouse and Warehouse save it as delta format. The only difference is the Lakehouse delta files are governed by Spark, you can say, and Warehouse delta files are governed by T-SQL. So who is the first technology who understand the data changes? So in case of Lakehouse, the first technology which understand the data changes is Spark. And in case of Warehouse, the first technology which understand the data changes is T-SQL. So now technology is a choice. Let's say we are on structured data. Now, whether I want to use Spark or whether I want to use T-SQL, that can decide my choices. Structured, unstructured was another choice. Now, there is one more thing which we have in Microsoft Fabric ecosystem is basically SQL DB. Now, SQL DB comes in place when we wanted to have OLTP kind of a system. Means if I want to have create, let's say, app, which is pretty much possible in Fabric. Like I can create a application which can take the data, insert data quickly. In such cases, we use SQL DB. Now, SQL DB replicate data again in delta format, which is very similar to warehouse. So live versus means OLTP versus OLAP. In OLAP, we have a choice versus technology or versus basically the structured unstructured data. Now, Lakehouse can have unlimited historical data also. We call time travel. So Lakehouse can pretty much, you can control whatever you want. Warehouse is also between a range. 2 days to 120 days is something which you can control. 120 is right now the highest limit. But time travel is possible. So time travel is basically I went ahead and let's say updated data today, but I can still see what was my data before that update. So there is more flexibility when you use Lakehouse because it is Spark governed and the underlying data technology is more well versed with the Spark. So that is why you get more flexibility when you use Lakehouse. Also, it is one of the misconceptions that everybody has that we cannot work on warehouse using the PySpark. We can work using PySpark. The only thing is there are special Synapse libraries which are there, which you have to use to work with that. Again, there are certain limitations because warehouse is still T-SQL governed, so not all the operations are supported, but you can work with the PySpark in those. Now, PySpark, the technology, because it is supported by Spark or let's say Scala or let's say Spark R or Spark SQL, they have a huge extendability. Means you can run, petabytes of data transformation and everything using the Spark.
Mm.
While SQL is a great technology up to a volume of data. So that is where if your system is really, really large, you will go for Lakehouse. So if you are really huge on data, you need to, really save, bring the data, whether I should be able to run fast, but I want to do it quickly. Spark
Mm.
helps. Now, on the other end, SQL extended its own way. Means it's the same traditional SQL way where it extend, it goes, you take the power and does the job. But I can tell you, up to you are up to few millions, you will not be able to differentiate between the performance. We have implementations which have been done on lakehouses and warehouses, and both equally performs good. And
Okay.
on millions of rows, SQL also never let you down. It does really good performance. It shows that work done within time with lesser CU consumptions. All these things makes it really amazing. So I think it is more about choice of technology by the organization, and definitely if it is unstructured data and you need to do a lot of data science, where Lakehouse definitely wins compared to warehouse.
Mm. Did you think the Lakehouse architect sorry, required a different mindset? So what if an organization already has a strong SQL and traditional data warehouse team?
See, see, ultimately the two concepts is same. Now the here is understood. Even if I implement complete lake house, so let's say bronze, silver, and gold, all are lake houses. So my so-called one source of truth lake could be a lake house also, which is so-called warehouse in the functional terminology, and it will all be warehouse. If it is all structured data, I'm happy to be with warehouse. But yes, if I need to do a lot of data science, and when I say data science, it's not the use of AI or LLM. That is pretty much possible even using data agents and everything, but I need to, let's say, develop my own algorithm, clustering, classifications, and everything. That is where that scale is typically more easily possible with Spark, and that is where probably I would like my data, underlying data, to be in Lakehouse compared to warehouse.
Mm.
While I already said that you can access your data on the warehouse using PySpark, but definitely there is an intermediate intervention which is required while saving. So I would, if I have to do a lot of data science stuff, or I have a lot of unstructured data which I have to deal, I preferably you go ahead with Lakehouse.
Mm. And where does the data lake fit into the story? I think a little bit, or what are the advantages of the data tables inside the fabric?
Okay, so when we initially, so the concept of the lake, which we call data lake, is basically you can store any kind of data, any format of data, structured or unstructured, someplace. So Lakehouse fits in that story. So basically, when we say Lakehouse, the structured data is basically delta, which is same as warehouse in the in Fabric world, because it is also delta format in the backend. But the unstructured data is something which you are storing in the file. So we have the file part which we can store any kind of data. So the concept of OneLake or the data lake, so the concept of data lake is getting replicated by Lakehouse, while warehouse represent the traditional SQL warehouses with those warehouse kind of a properties, asset properties, and everything. And yeah, definitely asset properties are something which are not supported on Lakehouse, which are supported on warehouse.
Mm. Awesome. So I think now we understand where the data should live, but we need also, yeah, get them there. W- What are the main ingestions options in Fabric?
Okay. So ingestion option, one of the thing we talk about is we can have a shortcut of the data if it was. Now the second one comes is mirroring. Now there are few sources. for which mirroring is directly available, and for others you have custom mirroring. Now the advantage of mirroring, which by organization like, is basically it is self-managed. Everywhere where we have a good change data capture mechanism, mirroring works very easily. Now Microsoft doesn't charge you for the compute as well as storage up to a limit for bringing the data in. So let's say if on in Fabric I want F2 capacity, I will get 2 terabyte of free storage and free compute to bring that 2 terabyte. I'm if I'm on F64, F64 is one of the very common capacities, and the reason for that is one is there are very high limitations on the data set size, especially for Power BI, and the Power BI viewer license are free after F64 onwards. So if I am on F64 capacity, the mirroring will allow me 64 terabyte of data to be stored for free and to compute free for bringing that. So that is my second choice, or you can say first choice if I don't count shortcuts. Then comes my ability to bring in data using pipelines, which has copy activity and copy job. Copy job again is having very good CDC options available, and copy activity also. Now both are meant for the purpose. So if I want to bring the data, these are my choices. But yes, the pipeline copy activity and copy job has around 40-50 connectors, and that is where data flow wins, because data flow gen 2 has more than 200 plus connectors.
Yeah.
It has Power Query which can also do the transformations.
Mhm.
So data flow gen 2 would be your fallback option in most of the cases when you are not able to connect. And all of them has generic connector like REST API, and we also have the ODBC generic connector, or we have OLEDB. All these things are also available, web connector, etc. So our choice would be, finally, if we are falling back, we'll use da- data flow gen 2 to bring in the data. It has maximum number of connectors, and it has also fast copy connector now, which will make sure that it is as good as your copy activity in most of the cases. Definitely, transformation choices are uh, there. In case you are bringing from data flow gen 2, you can transform the data also there. Now, because we have the Spark and Python inside the system, uh, if your data is available online, right now it is not supported for on-premise sources. You do have now various connectors available at the notebook level. Previously also we were able to bring the data in, but we have to mention all the credentials in the notebook. But now we have connections which is basically supported in a manner that you don't have to show your credentials in the notebook. And that again creates one more way to bring in your data. Now, when you bring in the notebook, the handling of the data is mostly in your hand. It is basically how you bring, how much you bring, and everything. While in all other cases, it is managed by the system. So you have these many choices to bring in data.
Mhm. And what would you say? How important is Power Query knowledge for working effectively with data flow Gen 2?
See, Power Query is something which is Dataflow Gen 2 is having. Basically, it is same as our Power BI's Power Query or your our Dataflow Gen 1's query. And if we know Power Query, it would be really helpful, because I can tell you those who are migrating from Power BI world, their first choice is Dataflow Gen 2. Those who are coming from Azure world, their first choice is typically the data pipelines and let's say PySpark transformations and everything. So we will get very familiar things whenever we are coming from a different world to the Fabric world. Fabric is new, so somebody from the Power BI world will come, somebody from the, let's say, um, the PySpark engineering world will come, somebody will come from different migration kind of tools which is very similar to pipeline will come. So orchestration and everything will happen. So we'll find some very similar tools here in Microsoft Fabric to start with.
Mm. Okay, awesome. I think, is there performance or maintainability limits that we should know about in data flow Gen 2?
Okay. So this is really interesting. So data flow Gen 2 uh, is very good for a small to medium size of data. But when you come to a larger scale, the transformation in PySpark can excel much faster than the in Dataflow Gen 2. While Microsoft is continuously investing and consistently improving the performance of Dataflow Gen 2 when it is large volume of data, but it becomes really easy because PySpark or Python is like an open language. You can have tons of things to do and manage it. And that is why, if it is a really large scale data transformation, we prefer PySpark. I don't have a data flow Gen 2 versus PySpark, but data flow Gen 1 versus PySpark performance could be having 80% gain both in terms of compute as well as in terms of time. That is a proven fact what we have observed at the customer level. So data flow, if you had a data flow Gen 1, if you completely convert it into PySpark, you can save a lot on the compute units as well as the time. Both you are saving. It is not one we are saving. And that is where PySpark could be a really good choice for data transformation going forward in the future for large scale data.
Yeah, that's interesting. For someone coming from the Power BI or SQL part, when they actually need PySpark.
So the data transformation part is something which is basically instead of SQL can happen on the PySpark. And when I say PySpark, I have this habit of calling PySpark, but we can use the Spark notebooks, which could be on Scala, which could also be on Spark SQL. So if you're from SQL world, you will find Spark SQL very familiar to you. If you are from, let's say, Power Query world, you will see PySpark almost have similar kind of functions which you have. Let's say, if I want to join, there also have I have table dot let's say join something, and here also I have data frame dot join. So very similar functions I have here also to do one-on-one operations with compared to Power Query. So
Mm.
definitely, if we are coming from let's say SQL plus Power Query world, we can start on Fabric with those. But as the data grows, as the things grows, slowly we have to start moving some of our stuff to PySpark, or maybe we can say Spark notebooks.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's interesting. How do notebooks change the way data engineer teams work actually?
See, we have to understand that the notebooks, especially running by Spark, is made for scale. So they because we can decide, how much compute they should use. They should use 10 node, small cluster or extra small cluster or large cluster, all those things we can do, and that scale comes up with Spark. And because of that, you might do need to do heavy lifting, and that heavy lifting you wanted to do, and you also wanted to save time. Not only the volume of data increasing, but you also want to reduce the time. That is where easily can happen in Spark, and Spark is meant for that. The entire evolution of Spark happens that, okay, I have the huge data, how do I want to process that data, uh, and get the time processing in quickly. And that's where the Spark was entire, that, okay, distribute this entire jobs on multiple nodes and then do it, and then bring the results in. And that's where the Spark notebooks are providing you here in Microsoft Fabric. So for scale, uh, and for getting the results faster, the Spark always helps you.
Hmm. Sounds interesting. Um, is there any performance mistake beginners do with Spark?
The thing which we have to do is, when you start as a beginner, don't try to play around with the Spark settings of Fabric. Also, secondly, instead of dealing with it at the notebook level, please create those different Spark cluster settings at the workspace level or capacity level and use it. Because I remember a case where what happens, one of the team, and we have allowed the setting of the Spark cluster at the workspace level. One of the team has created such a big cluster, and they were able to complete their job in 1 hour. They were really happy, but they end up consuming the entire capacity for all other folks. So those could be there. And again, there is a little bit of there are lesser controls sometimes required in the Fabric Spark, because some of the things are already handled by Fabric. So you might not to explicitly go and start Spark. It automatically creates sessions for you. So the small unlearning here, that you already have a Spark session. You don't need to explicitly start it. You can start using it, and then there are only selective parameters which you should change. If you take care of these things, I think it's pretty smooth journey. And even I think for a beginner who doesn't understand as the Spark works, it is much easier journey, because you are not taking care of where is my root folder, how should I start the Spark. I just know that I have a Spark session with all those capabilities and I can use it.
Mm, awesome. Another topic I think the biggest buzzwords is I don't know, the medallion architecture, and I think it's a little bit of that marketing. We call it bronze to silver and gold. Um, have have these vocabulary modern, or how important are the medallion architecture for Fabric?
See, for me, I see architecture should depend on organization and what kind of data we have. See, if your organization is having a very strong master data management, done at the source level, and data cleaning was a real big focus, probably you will have very clean data which is coming into the bronze layer itself. Then you really need silver, or then can you directly go to silver plus gold layer? That is the call you have to take, because I firmly believe the number of layers should be entire dependent on the kind of data, instead of I want to follow medallion architecture. Because when we initially started the data engineering, if you remember, we used to have staging area and the warehouse, the one source of truth. We were doing that entire as a part of transformation. Maybe we were creating the intermediate table, not explicitly calling it silver. Now, this has been a well-defined structure of medallion architecture. We have bronze, silver, and gold. So, if you have a very strong master data foundation which is laid outside, probably just think about, do you really need one silver copy? Because
Mm.
you might have clean data. But yes, if the master data foundation is not so great, then we need to bring in bronze, create a very strong, clean layer for the consumption of data at silver layer, and then create the gold layer. So, and I see most of the organization at some stage or other having these challenges of master data, because it's not uh, managed so greatly. So probably, if you can say 80% of the organization will fall in a category when they have to follow the medallion architecture of bronze, silver, gold. Yes, there are organizations who has really strong on data quality and data master data management and everything. Probably for them, silver is not too much other than having a following an architecture. Probably they could have bronze and silver, gold together
Mm.
while doing the transformation, putting it into the gold.
Yeah, that's interesting. So where should the business logic live? So should the business logic primarily exist in transformation, in the warehouse, in the semantic model, or somewhere else?
Now this is interesting. Now there are so this is little bit of sharing with gold and the semantic model. The reason for this is the business logic, which are little complex and the line level. We cannot keep them at the semantic model level. Ideally speaking, I would be happy to have all my mm, measurables or KPIs or performance indicator at the semantic model level, because it's easy, it's dynamic. I don't need to reload the data for doing it. So anything which I can keep at that level. But the problem is if the calculations are at line level, if I have millions of rows where I need to go ahead and do one calculation and then roll it up, it is not going to work out at the semantic model level. And in such cases, we always prefer to have the calculation done at the gold layer. Means basically when we load our data from silver to gold, we will apply those business logics. So business logics is shared between the gold layer creation and the semantic model. Our preference is to have it at the semantic model level because they can change easily. We can change formula, we can create new matrices, but definitely we don't want to do row level calculations for that. So we have to take a cautious call to make it at the two levels. That's how it's going to reside.
Awesome. And let's a little bit move closer to the business layer. Why are the semantics models so important, and what makes a good semantic model?
Okay. Now, see, if you ask me, if you would have asked this question, let's say maybe a couple of years back or 3 years back, for us, semantic model is for consumption of Power BI, isn't it? So we have a semantic model, we create Power BI reports on that. But with Fabric, the things have changed, especially after data agent, ontology, and Fabric app. This is all changing this playground and creating the bigger role for semantic model. So if you ask me, if AI brings a challenge to, let's say, Power BI as a visualization, where Power BI is not facing challenge is the semantic model.
Mm.
Because understand one thing, our all business logic are going to decide the relationship, and the key measures and the definitions are known by semantic model. And if I work on a semantic model, I don't need to tell the definition. What is my net sales? Semantic model knows it. What is my gross sales? What is my revenue definition? Everything semantic model knows it.
Mm.
And let's say if somebody need to do and go and do some transformation on directly on my lakehouse and warehouse, they don't know this definition. Now we have a semantic lab library which can enable you. Now our data agents also work on semantic model. It means the data agent wanted to take the advantage of the definitions which are not. Similarly, the ontology can be created on our semantic model. It means it's going to take the advantage of already existing knowledge by the semantic models, the relationship, the KPIs. Now we have Fabric apps which got launched recently. So one of the things which has happened because of this AI explosion over last few years, that we came to something which we were doing, let's say maybe 20 years back, that I can have my custom created report which whatever I want.
Mm.
And then from there, that place we move to, the tools because it is heavy maintenance. Because I can create my report, let's say on Java technology, by connecting to database and do everything and have slice and dice and everything. But it was a huge maintenance. I can't do it, and that's why I knew tools like Power BI, Tableau to just do it with drag and drop. But what AI has done over last couple of years is, you just go type in some command and your React dashboard is ready. You say, okay, I need all these features, it's all ready. And that's where we were coming back. Okay, why should I have executive only looking at reports which is fixed in the boundaries of what the tool can create? And that is where we have seen a lot of people were developing those AI apps. And the challenge with all those AI apps is they understand the warehouse or lakehouse better because they are having SQL endpoints. And the most common technology to be used by anyone is SQL or
Mm,
SQL. And
yeah.
because of that, they were developing here. But our logics were lying in semantic model, who will transform those measures or those KPI definitions into the SQL. There's again one. And that's where Microsoft came up with Fabric app enabled by Refin framework. Now it can create those reports, those so it use TypeScript and it can create those reports which all the kind of UI you need, the custom UI, the kind of slicers you need, the visual out of the box visuals and everything you on your semantic model. And that's what we call Fabric app. And then it is again getting published inside your Fabric workspaces. So same security, same everything. So now the role of the semantic model has greatly increased in terms of relationship and the definition it owns. But yes, the consumption could be Power BI visualization, could be data agent, could be ontology driven data agents, or maybe Fabric apps.
Mm,
But yes, we have a layer which knows our business, which understand our business well, and it can be used further downstream by anything.
mm, mm. And what will you say? How should teams approach measure for those calculated columns?
Okay. So when we say calculated columns, probably I would like them at the gold layer. Other than the calculated columns, which are now, which is very interesting thing, which has very recently happened in the Power BI world is context driven calculated columns. Now, context driven calculated columns means they change their value because a user comment. It also help us in sometime to hide some data. Basically, if I wanted to do data masking, it also helps in that. And sometimes it help in changing the column. Basically, I want to show different column. So if your column is not a context driven column, it should happen at the gold layer. All the majors, anything which is a major should be going to happen at the semantic model level. Context driven calculated column should happen at the model level, semantic model level. And rest of the calculation which are line level or really complex, which can slow down at the runtime, should be moved back to the gold layer.
Hmm. Awesome. Um, and that's I don't know. If I worked with Fabric and Power BI, DAX was the I don't know the main topic. And I see AI. It's awesome in generating DAX code now. Did you think DAX stays important or makes sense to learn DAX anymore?
See, I think in the new world, what is happening because AI is doing everything. Like when I created a let's say Refin dashboard, it uses TypeScript. I'm not sure what TypeScript is, how it is written, what is the structure of that, and everything. Similarly, it is happening with all the technology. Like probably you can generate a PySpark notebook using Copilot or even AI, and that is true with Dex also. But we have to understand when the things does not work and when the things need to be optimized, and
Mm,
that is where expertise comes in place. Now, some of us who are there in the industry for some time, we had gained that expertise over a period of time. Now, for the new learners, it is very easy to get a Dex from AI. So, do I really need to have an expertise? I think in the longer run, at least for next few years, you need to have that expertise on the subject. I know the technology is going really fast, and maybe after some time, it is more on the logics and less on the technology. So probably the language would be, using your logics and explaining your logic to the AI via prompts, not let's say C, Java, Dex, or Power Query.
mm,
It's just the thing which internally getting created and getting debugged also by AI only. But yes, definitely knowing something in depth how it works, it's always really important because in that case you can go and fix something which is actually not getting fixed by AI or which is getting not optimized by AI.
mm,
But as this intervention increase, probably up to me learning, how the algorithm works, how the logic works at different places is more important than the language is what we are going to use in future.
Mm. And I think another topic a lot of people aware of actually it's security. I have all my data now in OneLake. So how should we start with security in Fabric architecture?
See, in Microsoft Fabric, the security start from your workspaces, from where you can start controlling by rules, whether you are a viewer, you are a member, you are a contributor, or you are an admin. That's the first level. Now, in the Fabric world, typically we are trying not to have the workspace level access. We try to have item level access. Like in a lake house or warehouse, I can have a read data, read and write, and all those permissions. Then it further goes down, I can go to the item level. Now, item level permissions, typically we will try to control using one lake security wherever possible. And if we are not putting one lake security, we are going to have semantic model level security. Now, one lake security has came, I think, around 1.5, 2 years back, and it is still evolving. At some places, it may not provide you that option, and that is where we go and put the security at semantic model level. But one lake security is something which we are going to use, and that is where we can secure the data. Means we can do both the object level security OLS and RLS using one lake security.
Mm,
So what we are going to do here is basically, wherever possible, in terms of OLS and RLS, if possible, we are going to use one lake security. If we are unable to control at one lake level, or we don't want to control it at one lake level, basically lakehouse or warehouse, we are going to do it at the semantic model level. And definitely object level security means asset level security, basically your reports, your warehouse or lake house, we can control them at the works is either the workspace level or individual item level. So
mm,
from workspace to item to inside the item with one lake security.
awesome. So um the how does the row level security works with the semantic level correct? Yeah, or what's the best practice?
See, the row level security, basically now it can be done at two level. One is basically at the one lake security, which is can again, you can go and define, okay, I for this is the filter for that. So in one lake, you decide the filter, and then you create a role, and that can assign to the people. So that filter will get applied. So you will, let's say, only get north. I create a filter, it is north, and it get applied at the in all the endpoints, SQL endpoints, the semantic model endpoint, or even at the file endpoint. Now, when I come to the semantic model, the semantic model security of Power BI remains same. So it is the same way we create a role, and inside the role we again define a dynamic security
Mm,
using a table where we have the email addresses, using user principal name, or a static security by, like, say, saying region equal to north. And then we once the semantic model is published, we go in the security layer and add users or security groups. Preferably, we should use security groups, and security groups should be created like, this is a viewer security group, or this is a financial viewer security group, this is sales viewer security group, or sales contributor security groups. We should create security groups and assign those security groups to the security layer, or to the report, or to the one lake security. That is always a best practice.
mm. So we have the workspace permissions, we have the data permissions, and we have the semantic model security. But how to govern when an organization has hundreds or thousands of users and with different requirements?
Yeah, I see. I think the why we have these multiple layers, and but all these are all really smooth and integrated. So the reason is, let's say if I want to have few people to be admin and having access to everything, I don't have to go and do multiple permission. I can deal with workspace level permission, and they can access everything in the workspace they want. But there are certain set of user I don't want to give them access to everything. Let's say happened with us also. There are report user who are report builder as well as the report viewer, but we don't want to expose them the, let's say, warehouses or lake houses. So we control the security at the semantic model level. We give them access, and we make sure that it happens in such a manner that they don't have to see other objects. So all those possibilities are covered, and that is why you have these 2 3 years. Now we can do some AI automation for that to
Mm,
make sure it happens. Like, basically, the security, when we create the security group on a larger organization, these are also not manually created. You have, let's say, a service request which you are going to raise, and you will get added to a security group. The same request may add you to, let's say, a RLS. table also, where you get an access to a region, to a city, or to a product also. And then those RLS tables are used in your semantic model to govern the security. And similarly, the assignment also happens. Let's say I ask for sales viewer role. So sales viewer role with, let's say, city as New York. So the service request will go add me to the sales viewer security group. It will go and add me to the New York. It will also go and add me to the, let's say, workspace or to the reports where which I can see as the sales viewer. So all these automations can help us out.
Mm. And I have the Fabric Admin Center. I also have I don't know, it's Power BI the same name, but I also have the option in Power BI, and I also can use Entra. Uh, how should I handle these tools, or what's the best practice here?
So so we can have it that level. So basically enter security, where basically your all log is getting created, and security groups are also getting created at the Azure level. So that part happens there. After that, Fabric and Power BI is the workspace level security. Same way it applies. So post that, we give the assignment of the objects on the Fabric level to the security groups. Permissions are also decided to security groups. Sometimes we will, let's say, try it. Let's say Fabric app came as a new feature. Now I don't want everybody to go ahead and create those reports. So I will give permission to a set of users which are part of a security group to create those reports. Same way, I'll give the finance user access to, let's say, as a contributor or a member or an admin to, build the content and give it. And viewers of those, let's say, finance report, security group of finance viewers, I'll add them as a viewers and also add them to security. So this is how it happens. So definitely Entra part or the Azure creation of your emails and everything is not going away. So that will happen. Security group creation should also happen from there, and rest of the security will be managed at the Fabric level.
Mm. Yeah, I think we have looked a lot from the engineering part, but yeah, ultimately the most business users don't care about Spark data tables or Lakehouse. They care about answering questions. How do we bridge these gap?
Okay. So with Fabric has lots of options. Basically, if you ask me, future could be talking to your data agents. Right now, we also see a lot of people started using data agents. And in that data agent, ontology driven data agent is something really important, because what happens when you create ontology on top of your data, it do understand data much better. It goes look at the data and try to have the data part match, and it can provide better answer. And it can sometimes work even better on the Snowflake models or the models where, the typical star schema kind of stuff is not there. It also works better there. So ontology driven data agents would be our first choice in the future to communicate with our data and understand our data. Then we will have the reports. Definitely I will not want it to go and communicate and always ask questions. I would definitely want some numbers in front of me every day morning. Now those everyday morning numbers will either come from a Fabric app report or Power BI report. There are very high chances in the future that your data agents might create a report for you, which is basically could be a Fabric app and a Power BI app. After you ask a set of questions, okay, this is how I perform, these are the KPI I look at it, this is the information I need Monday morning, this is what I need Tuesday morning. So data agent probably could go ahead and create finally based on your communication a report which works your way, and not the report created by a developer, which gives you, okay, same set of report for all four executive, same set of reports for thousands of users. So probably data agent and the data agent created reports would be something which we will be front ending in future.
Yeah, I think a lot of Power BI and business users like to have a self-service BI. It's a little bit the stress test for most organization. What does a successful self-service BI look like?
Okay, so now see, understand, we are talking about this term self-service, but when we start creating those reports, the moment we go into the complex calculation, we realize we need to go back to the developer. Even in the Power BI world, where you have the self-service, knowledge of DEX was required. But in this new world of AI driven, you don't need that. Even if a major is not there, your AI agent is going to create. So this is real self-serve. Your model doesn't need to have all the formula. Your model doesn't need to have all the logics. It will on the fly create it. Now, definitely I will realize, okay, if it creates on the fly, it takes a lot of time. it's better to improve my model to answer some of those questions. Maybe better to have a major for that. So I think true self-service, what we are calling, is on the plate using data agents and the AI driven development. So where users will just be. So I'll tell you, I was on the weekend. I have created entire fabric from ingestion of data to transformation, creating a Power BI model, creating a report just by talking to the GitHub Copilot.
Mm.
I have not went ahead in any of the UI other than the testing. So we are reaching that level. Now understand what would be the future, that you define your requirement well. To define your requirement well, you have tools also, which will define your requirement well, then they will break it. And then you will only go ahead and say, okay, go ahead and create the tickets on my DevOps. And then you will come to GitHub Copilot and say, okay, execute all these tickets one by one. And it's getting created and you do work. So the knowledge of technology only needed for the debugging skills, for what is not working, how to make it work. But it's going to be a really self-serve environment. Like, in our generation, we used to learn computers. But if you look at the next generation, they know computer by, they know it as a skill. It's just like a language skill for that. For future, the AI would be that kind of skill where everybody knows how to build those complex, some of those systems using AI. So that will become a primary skill for the next set of people who are now learning those things. So probably for them it would be just okay. I type prompt. I'll have my stuff ready for me.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, we're really little bit running out of time, so I have in every a session of a rapid fire round. So I ask a short question, you give a short answer. Is it the? Are you ready, Amit?
Yeah,
Okay. Lakehouse or warehouse?
Lakehouse,
SQL or PySpark?
PySpark,
Dataflow Gen 2 or Notebook?
notebook,
DAX or SQL?
Dex,
Most underrated Fabric feature?
uh, Fabric apps,
The biggest Power BI modeling mistake?
many-to-many relationships.
What is when Satya and Dalia call you, Amit, and say, hey, you get all the money and resources to build your dream feature. What will you build?
Probably, I would want to improve upon on data agents. So just ask them, okay, this is my requirement. Have a dashboard ready. Every day it should change based on some requirements. I don't want to see same dashboard every day.
One Fabric skill every Power BI professional should learn
Uh, Probably you should be knowing Power Query Index, if nothing else.
is Fabric apps the new Power BI.
Yes.
Awesome. So, and who should I invite next, and what questions should I ask?
I think you can invite Rajendra, who's again Microsoft Fabric MVP, and you should ask him more questions about ontology and Fabric app. I think he's one a lot of working on real time analytics. Actually, he's working a lot on real time analytics. So maybe you have a session on Fabric real time with Rajendra, the data platform MVP.
Mm. And if an organization wants to start with Fabric tomorrow, what should its first project be?
I think any data project where you think I need some kind of analysis, it it just in a starting point. It could be just knowing how my employee performance is there or how my sales is ongoing. If you think you need data analysis, Fabric is there for you.
Awesome. So yeah, Emmett, thank you for joining me and taking us through the complete Microsoft Fabric analytics journey. What I think in this conversion makes clear is that Fabric isn't simply another individual analytics product. Real opportunity comes from connecting data, ingestion, engineering, lakehouse, warehouse, architecture, semantic models, security, and Power BI into one coherent platform. And the technology alone isn't enough. The architecture ultimately has to deliver trust information that people can use to make better decisions. So for all the people to listen to the podcast and interested to connect and see how it works, you can look at the show notes and you find his profile there. And yeah, thank you again, Amit, for being a part of the show.
Thank you for inviting me.